Welcome to another Timeless Wisdom, Modern Mind. I am your host, Sam Esquivel. We have a great, how can I say this? Eye-opening, mind-expanding talk that I'm going to share with you today. The title as of right now is The Success/Struggle Angle. And there is things that are hiding in plain sight. And sometimes that's what it's needed for you to find your path, right? Or sometimes it derails you because it's just so traumatic. But for some people, it sparks something amazing. And from that struggle, something huge comes into their life. I read a book recently, and it's entitled Thank You, Mr. Falker by Patricia Polacco, Polacco. Pardon me if I don't read that correctly, but it kind of falls in place with what I'm going to share today. And I'm going to give you a short synopsis of this book, and then I hope that this wisdom motivates you, however it is, whether you're looking at someone else's life that it applies to, whether you can look back at your life and plug this in, or you might be going through something right now. And this is a children's book, but it might help you right now. This is a true story of a young girl named Patricia who grew up in a family that loved books. Her grandpa even drizzled honey onto a book and had her taste it to show her that knowledge is sweet. But when Patricia started school, the letters and numbers looked like wiggly jumble. She spent years feeling dumb, hiding under stairwells to avoid bullying and believing that she was a failure. It isn't until 5th grade that she meets Mr. Falker that everything changed. He's the first person to see past her acting and realizing that she had dyslexia. He protects her from bullies and works with her every day until the jumble finally starts to be still. It's a story about how one person's belief in you can rewrite your entire future. In my life, I struggled with reading and writing. I did not get diagnosed. I don't know what it was. But whenever I read this book, I realized that I felt the same way that Trisha did. I felt dumb for so long. And with that being said, I just want to say thank you to my wife, Monica, for introducing me to this book. She read it and she said, let's listen to it together. And here I am. We're doing an episode based on this book. Again, it's a children's book. You can read it in 13 minutes. It's not a difficult read, and it's impactful. And so from the book, and right now, maybe while you're watching this, if you're on YouTube, maybe I'll put a little image of the book cover up. If not, the author and the book will be in the description below. And so let's go ahead and start. These are some things that I gained from this book. And the first one is the Mask of Competence. People often work twice as hard to hide a struggle as they do to fix it. We have to look closer to see who is actually drowning. When I was growing up, when Trish was growing up, she was struggling with this, and she would try to separate herself from the crowd. Such did I. And that was hard work to maintain a persona, right? As opposed to, I didn't know any better, as opposed to finding a solution for the problem. But when you're young, right? But it could apply at any age. When you don't have the right people around you, you don't know the direction to go next, you tend to say, well, just let me work around it. Let me find a workaround. But some things like reading are so necessary that it's best to confront it. But how are you supposed to know that? How was I supposed to know that? I was young. And so I struggled. And so people work twice as hard to hide their struggles. What struggles do you have, right? Is it one that's been existing for a long time that you've overcome, right? That no one even knows that you struggle with because you've managed to get a job that doesn't require it. You don't bring it up. You don't put yourself in circumstances where whatever it is that you're weak in is called to service, right? And so for many years before I was doing youth ministry, reading and writing wasn't necessary. I can get away with not having to do it. I simply just had to communicate. But as soon as I stepped into having to read, study, research, and write, and then present what I wrote, that's whenever I really started to fix that which was drowning me. And so this might be a call for you, the listener, or for someone that you're thinking about right now that may be drowning. And the word drowning is very strategic because everyone thinks when you drown, call for help, you assume they're going to be loud. Maybe most of us probably know this, but it uses the word drowning because it's silent. You have no breath, you have no strength, you're underwater. And so even if you wanted to call out for help, you can't. Hence, the lifeguard can look at a group of people swimming and say, he knows how to identify that someone is drowning. And so having a person step up and help is very necessary. Who might that be? Who knows? For her, it was a teacher, and she wrote a book thanking that teacher. And so here's another takeaway: the power of an interpreter. A single person standing in the gap can break a cycle of bullying or failure. How many of us can look back at somebody who helped us, right? Where the world was knocking us down. It could be the word dumb, right? And someone stepped in right in the middle of that and said, no, you're not. In this case, people were bullying her. The teacher stepped in and did something about the bullies. And therefore, she got some freedom from that and was able to, it just wasn't going to affect her anymore like it had been for so long. And so this might be for you now, the listener, and you know of someone and you just have to step in. It might be to help them from a person, from negative talk, or from drowning. And so the power of an interpreter, right? Somebody that can stand in the gap. Someone may stand in the gap for you. And you're so good at hiding it, you may think you don't need it. So you're going to have to be a little humble to receive it. But you might also be able to stand in the gap and break a negative cycle of self-belief for someone that is going to set him up for a future that is amazing. And another great thing that we learn from this is the way the grandpa poured honey and she tasted the honey off of the book. It was a metaphor of how he interpreted learning and knowledge. And a lot of that knowledge came from books. I know this day and age, a lot of knowledge comes from YouTube videos and podcasts such as this. But most of that wisdom has trickled down through writing. Someone at some point wrote this stuff down, and it's been passed down, reinterpreted, and delivered in many different ways. And so knowledge as a sustenance, right? It is something that we need. So learning just isn't a chore. And when you're young, you feel like, man, I hate school and this is difficult, and I get it. And there's a good amount of students who don't see that, but the ones that do, you know who I'm talking to. But as an adult, we get comfortable in what we're doing, and we're okay with learning what we need to learn to do the job or whatever it's called for us to do. But anything outside of that, right? If I'm running a welding machine, do I have the appetite to learn about opera? Do I have the appetite to learn about engineering or anything else, writing poems or studying anything else, right? Because knowledge is something that we need. And so it is sweetness and honey that nourishes the soul. When we grow, when we learn, not only do you get to grow, get new jobs, get degrees, raises, all this great stuff that comes from knowledge, but it does something internally, because someone who struggles learning, someone who struggles with reading and writing, their soul isn't being fed, it's being defended, it's weak, because you're trying to protect yourself from the outside world, reminding you of where you lack. And so knowing that, you just flip it on its head, look at the opposite effect. And when we gain knowledge, it says it's sweetness and honey. It nourishes our soul, the inner part of us. It starts to kind of waken up. Like we have confidence that people can see because of how we talk and how we move. And that's great. But there's another type of confidence that communicates between yourself and your soul. And that is, how do I show up even before I show up to a place? How do I talk to myself before I can hear myself talking in my head? It's already grounded in your soul, and it's positive. That's what we need. That is what is life-changing. And so knowledge as sustenance, right? And so as we continue, and don't forget, the book is absolutely amazing. Thank you, Mr. Falker, by Patricia Polacco. There we go. I'll put that in the description below. Don't forget, you're listening to Timeless Wisdom, Modern Mind. Here we go. Here's some more things that I got from this amazing short children's book. It wasn't a 200, 300 page book with small text. No, this had a lot of images. It had a few words, but they were the right words. And it was based on a true story. And I feel like I was connected to what the author went through when she was describing her struggle. And so here we go. There is pain, or the pain of comparison. Trisha's struggle was amplified because she saw everyone else getting it effortlessly. We see that. You see that. I see that. Some people are smarter. They move faster. They're more successful. If you're younger, they just do their homework better. Their grades are better. And they play soccer, football. They make everything seem effortless. And then you start looking at yourself and saying, why am I struggling? Pause right there. You're already losing. All of us have permission to grow from where we're at, not to compare where someone else is and then subtract where we're at. Don't think like that. She began to do that. We all do that. I have done that. Comparison made me more embarrassed when I couldn't read and write growing up in school. Comparison made me say, well, that's how they are. How can I manipulate how I talk so that they can't tell the difference? it begins to make you lie to yourself, right? And like I said earlier, confidence from within, deep, deep down in the soul, is so, so important. And so there's a lot of pain in comparison. I get it. Your struggle is real, and there's people who don't have that struggle. Good for them. Hopefully, they're the person that's going to stand in the gap and help you, because that's really the only persons that you need, not the ones that are going to, comparison's going to kill you, man. And so just know that it comes with work, but that you can overcome. It might take a long time, but if you start, you're at least growing. Some things aren't going to be fixed like as easy as the switch goes from on to off or off to on. Some things are a journey, but remember that journey. And along the way, don't say they do it better, they're more advanced, they're this, they're that. Don't do that. You can say, I was here yesterday, I'm here today. I did it this, whatever, poorly a year ago. I'm 100 times better today. That is much better. It isn't comparison. It's more like you looking at your growth, you looking at your steps that you're taking towards improving. And so, there's pain in comparison. That means you're hurting yourself. And so quit hurting yourself. And in the book, there's safe spaces. Mr. Falker created a classroom where cuteness or smartness didn't grant status, effort did. And I'm thankful for this teacher. I know you probably have a teacher in your life who stepped up for you, believed in you when no one else did. For me, Dr. Jenkins stepped in. I had a lot of teachers. Obviously, this was a teacher later on whenever I was in high school, but that's whenever I was confronting, do I continue? Do I quit? Who am I? Really just living year after year thinking that I was just dumb. She saw something in me. She helped me so that I could graduate. She helped me so that I could establish and realize that there was a leader, there was a voice in me, and she created, a safe place, and she gave me opportunity. And here, it was effort. It was effort that mattered, and he created this classroom where she could finally thrive and not be hurt. So, and it's so hard looking back as I was reading this book. I mean, it's pretty sad. And so, Trisha, I feel your pain. I could have switched her name out with me. What's your struggle? What's been holding you back? There's a safe space somewhere, whether it be with someone that's going to help you, a great leader, a mentor. Usually they're the ones that control these environments, and they have a lot to do with these safe spaces where you're allowed to show where you're deficient, but that's just highlighting where you're also ready to grow. And so I hope that you find this person, this place. I know that I did, and it helped me. And anytime I share my story, I share this person because they usually show up at the right time. Again, you might be needing someone, or you might be the someone that someone is needing. Be sensitive to know which you need. And everything takes time. And so the long game. Transformation didn't happen overnight for her, and not for many of us. Sometimes it takes months. And so she persisted on going after school to help unjumble the words, right? And it was slow, and it wasn't rewarding every day, but there was growth by inch after inch after inch. After a while, it's 3 yards by 3 yards. After a while, it's 10 feet by 10 feet, 100 feet by 100 feet. And that's whenever the growth is clear. And so it's just, and so let me give you some more, what we can do to put this wisdom into practice for yourself, or if you have someone in mind that you're going to help. And so the honey ritual identify one thing that you're learning this week and treat it as a gift rather than a task. Remind yourself that knowledge is a privilege. And so that is, when you're learning, look at it only as a positive, even if the learning is hard, even if the growth is slow. Identify one thing that you're learning and be thankful for that. All of us have, come on. When have you not heard have gratitude? Have gratitude. It's good for you. It's good for you. When you learn, be thankful. And then, so here's another thing. Look for the jumble in your workspace or your family, wherever you find yourself. Look for the person who seems frustrated or quiet and ask them, is there a part of this that isn't making sense? Instead of assuming they aren't trying, right? Give them a hand. Look for the person that that looks like they might need help, and someone also might see that person in you and help you. I don't know who this is for, but I'm hoping that this helps someone. Be the Falker, Mr. Falker. Commit to being the person who silences the bullies, the ugliness in this world. If you see someone being dismissive, speak up and validate their value publicly. You might be the voice that someone else needs. You might have the position, the authority to say something that causes change. And people are suffering every day from bullying for whatever reasons that lead up to it, but it breaks the soul. And this happens forever, for kids, for adults. It's just this disease that's everywhere. But when you're a kid and you're in middle school, 5th, 6th grade, and you're going through it to the point that you cry every night and you don't want to go to school, look in the mirror. You might be the person who can give this individual relief. It might be you. It might be me. But look for those people and just step up. So here's a mental test. Ask yourself, am I hiding a jumble in my own life because I'm afraid of looking dumb? Vulnerability is the first step to being helped. How vulnerable are you with yourself? What are you going through? Are you able to reach out? Are you able to talk about it? Have you identified it? Some of us can't because we're embarrassed. And hey, I'm guilty. It took me a long time to be able to talk about my struggles with reading and writing. And I mean, I went through it from the moment I started school to, man, I was in my 20s, but I constantly kept at it. It's not perfect. It's still, I'm still growing inch by inch, but I've been able to identify what it was, right? I was able to be honest with myself. And so now I force myself to read. I force myself to write. And obviously doing this podcast, I'm communicating a skill that I developed because of my deficiency. But now I've combined some research, some writing, as I'm doing this Timeless Wisdom, Modern Mind podcasts. Both of them are getting used at the same time. And I see, it's very rewarding to know how difficult this is for me to do. And then when I do it, it gives me hope that, I have overcome and that others can overcome as well. And in the previous episodes, I always like to touch on a verse that kind of connects to what I'm talking about. Obviously, the stuff I said before, or the Bible verse, and a little bit of wisdom that I'm going to share there. Feel free to dig in deep and share it with me. Comment, send me a message. Let me know what else you can add to this that can help me in case, I discuss this point in a talk or something that I do in my life. And so Proverbs 16:24, gracious words are as honeycomb, sweet to the soul, and healing to the bones. It's repeating what we said, man. And so, um, uh, just as Trisha's grandfather used honey to represent the sweetness of the word and knowledge, the Bible tells us that our words have the same power. Mr. Falker's words weren't just nice, they were healing. And she needed them at that time. They literally healed Trisha's bones, her inner structure and self-worth, which had been crushed year after year, not only because she was called a dummy, but because she thought of herself as a dummy. Not only was I looked at as a dumb kid, but I felt like a dumb kid for so many years until later in my life when I put in the time, people stepped in the gap and helped me out. I read, I wrote, I spoke, I read in front of people. I overcame, and I'm not even the best reader out there, but it does not hold me down anymore. And it has healed me. And I still look back. I share it because it existed, but I prefer to motivate people from now, like the way that I have overcome it. And so, yeah, I'll leave you with that, right? The biblical, there's another character, Barnabas, and he's the son of encouragement. When the Apostle Paul, formerly Saul, first tried to join the disciples, everyone was terrified of him and rejected him. The only saw him as a bully of the church. And so the other disciples were like the kids in the classroom. They only saw the surface and reacted with fear and judgment. So here's the result. Barnabas took Paul under his wing like Mr. Falker and stood up for him. He looked past the jumble of Paul's reputation because he was known for condemning Christians' reputation and saw his potential. Because of Barnabas' sweet words and advocacy, Paul became the greatest missionary in history. And so he saw who he was, but that wasn't good. And he flipped it on his head and he ended up becoming pretty impactful. And in the same way, look in the mirror, right? Whether it be in your past, someone in your life, or you right now need someone to help you in the same way that you're kind of hiding what's holding you down, your power does lie in there. We need to apply a little honey on it, right? So that you know that there's power in the pain, but there's also growth in knowledge. And when you combine those two together, the person that existed in those two things will benefit whenever you outgrow those things and you look in the mirror and you believe in yourself. And so today's, timeless wisdom, modern mind, today's episode was titled The Success/Struggle Angle. Don't forget, find this book. It's a children's book, but it's a great book. Thank you, Mr. Falker, by Patricia Polacco, Polacco. Thank y'all so much for tuning into another episode. Please follow and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Tell us what you learned. Tell us if this helped you, and we'll see you on the next one.